lately, the Oriental cultural ethos is math and science. In terms of their advancement as a people, they're the best. With all American technology, with all American advances, it's both the Chinese, the Indians, and the Asians and Indians who are the best in terms of math and science. Why is that? But that's what they're known for. And we as a people, especially we're black people, that we're the only ethnic group or minority group that don't speak but one language. Don't have but one language. But one language, we're the only. Whether you're Latino, Asian, Australian, whatever, you choose not to speak your language. You know what language you do not have to speak. We cannot even tell you what our language was because of the Holocaust of slavery and how they just snatched black people off the continent from whatever tribe, the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Xhosa, the Zulu, the Watusi. They just made us one big mash here in this country. And they stripped us culturally. It was cultural genocide on us as a people. And as a result of that, we still sort of like walking around in the wilderness of North America trying to understand and figure out who we are, where we come, what are our cultural roots. As I said, one time we were colored, then we were black, and now after the 60s we became African Americans. We begin to reach out and touch back to the continent. People say, and I have to quote Malcolm here again, he said, we left nothing in Africa. We don't have nothing. And Malcolm said, you left your mind in Africa. That's what we left in Africa. We left our mind. Everybody's connected to something. You name me a group of people that don't have an origin or beginning or culture where they came from. Name them. We don't have, only us. Except for when we took on and adopted Africa and began to realize we are an African people in America. That's who we are, like Chinese American, like Japanese American, like Jewish American, Puerto Rican American. They are all what their cultural identity, their political identity, cultural as well as political identity, and then the American second. Because America, for the most part, don't really have a culture. Everything America had that was stole or borrowed, including their God. And I'm not anti-religious and that is Jesus Christ. He's Jewish. Jesus is Jewish, for those who don't know. Nothing in America, except for the Native American, is original in this country. Everything else was imported, including us. So we have to understand, as black people, who we are, where we came from, how we got here, what our responsibility and role is while we're here, and that's to each other, and where we're going to go in the future. Not just where your future lies, but where your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren future lies. What will they say to you in 20, 30, 40 years from today in terms of where we at as a people? Will we still be dealing with the issues of race or racism in this country? Will we still be dealing with a question of discrimination? Will still be dealing with an issue of exploitation of us ourselves as well as probably the world? We have a responsibility as a people. We have to take or be conscious of that responsibility. We have to take on that responsibility and do whatever is necessary, by any means necessary, to develop ourselves as a people, to become a proud and productive people once again, to step back on the stage of human history and make our mark like we did in the beginning. And in closing, I'd just like to say, for those of you who take on the role, if the Black Revolution fall victim to defeat, the blame will not lie with the masses of our people, but with those of you who take on the role of leadership, but fail to take on the responsibility that comes with that leadership. Thank you.
Tommy you've put out quite a bit. I've got like one question. I'm going to open it up, sort of the question and answer. But thinking back to the summer festival itself, the Watts Summer Festival, because I dare say this class here has absolutely no reference point to it at all. What was the thought when you started? What did it become as you worked with it over the years, especially the political matters? You know, because a lot of times they hear this, they think, well, it just happened, you know, everything was fine. I didn't have no problem. And then, you know, I always give you that time capsule question. If it were 100 years from now, and they were to look back, you know, and they look back in particular at the Watts Summer Festival, what would you hope that they would remember it for? You know, maybe if you could frame the remark.
The first thing I would remember that it came out of the struggle of people. It came out of the struggle. That's where the festival came from, like anything comes from. Without struggle, there's no progress. Whatever it is. They say birth is the most beautiful thing in the world for women. But I hear it's very painful as well. And no one has stopped having babies. So everything's come out of struggle. It is a struggle. And the Watts Summer Festival came out of the struggle, number one. Number two, I hope that we're remembered for contributing to the human flow of the forward flow of human history in terms of cultural integrity. Because we did not create it. It was people here before us and organizations and movements before us, dealing with, including Garvey, dealing with the Back to Africa movement. We just continued that legacy on. So I hope we remember for continuing the legacy for cultural integrity, for saying we are somebody. We're saying we're black and we're proud. There used to be a time when you call us black and you have to have a pair of boxing gloves. You know, people was offended by it. Now it's natural. Now the N-word is out, which it should be. But it was like, we as a people now can say we're black. We can say that we're proud of who we are. We're proud of where we come from. We can say we're African Americans. But we don't need to just say those words. We need to dig into our history. And I make a lot of reference to the Jewish people, not because I'm Jewish, but because we know their history better than we know ours. We know their history better than we know ours, from the Holocaust to the crucifixion of Christ. And we seem to never forget that history. We seem never not to want to know that history. And it's put on us from day one, from our baptism, when we were first baptized, to the day they take us out of here this way. You know, Christianity stands over us. So that is important to us in terms of our history as religion. We need to remember and keep in mind who we are as a people. And while we do that, transmit that information to our children. I hear a lot of people say, young people don't this today, young people don't that today, young people is this, young people is that. I don't buy that. If young people are in bad shape today, it's because those of us who preceded you did not do the job we were supposed to do in the first place. That's the only reason young people are in bad shape today. It's not because of you. But you do have a responsibility if we want to learn it. But we share in the responsibility for what you are not today. It is not your fault. You cannot let people tell you that, and don't let adults tell you that. And we're all different. We're not going to be like our parents. We're going to be a part of our parents and a part of what society and what the conditions make us to be as you grow and develop. I was affiliated in the 60s. I'm not just telling you the history of the 65 revolt. I was there. I participated. Marquette Fry and I was a friend of. We bailed him out of jail when he went to jail. The Panther Party, the US organization, all the black movements, Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Angela Davis, I've been affiliated with and associated with since the 60s. The Sons of Watts. Watts as a community was so unique, and we had some Communist Party members who was organizers in the community. Watts was so unique, and it was the Nation of Islam. No organization was able to take root in the Watts community but the Sons of Watts, those of us who was indigenous to that community. Now we had friends, we had associates, and we had efforts on the part of every organization I named, including the Panthers, the Nation of Islam, the Communist Party, who came into Watts after 1965. But we as a community were so strong, were so committed, were so dedicated, were so knowledgeable of who and what we were as a people. We didn't need anybody coming in and telling us anything. You could come in and assist us in what we were about to do in the agenda that we had laid out for ourselves in terms of quality of life issues. But you didn't take leadership from us. And we as a people have to have that same kind of mindset in terms of who we are. Don't let people tell you who you are and who you're not, and that we're going past the color thing. That's a real issue with me. The very fact that they're looking you in your face and telling you that ought to tell you something, and they're not one of you. It's something about that. And it's really the historical memory. They wiped ours out, and they want to sort of keep us from remembering about it. We are black people who was taken from our homeland and enslaved in this, and put in slavery in this country, and have been treated less than human, and attempted to strip us of our humanity since we've been here in this country. And we can never forget that, nor let it go. It doesn't mean I'm not going to go to work because I was a slave 100 years ago. That's not what it means. It means you're going to get up, and not only when you go to work, you're going to plan on taking over the business that you're working for. You're going to plan on becoming the boss of the business. You're going to go to school and get an education so you can develop your own instead of constantly developing and improving somebody else's stuff. That's what it means. You got a responsibility because who you are, and you owe it to all of those that came before us. Mothers, fathers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles. They all came before us. That's why you're here today. Without that history, none of you would be in this room. Your mothers and your fathers, your grandmothers and your grandfathers, they paid a price so that your mother can get and father can get where they got to, and so they paid a price so you can get to where you got to or at, and you're going to have to pay a price for your children to get there. That's why you've got to be ready. That's why you've got to go to school. That's why you've got to get an education. That's why you've got to be determined, because you've got to give your children a lift up higher than the ones your parents gave you, and put them on the next level, so that in return, an election of Obama will be routine. The black man owning being in the top Fortune 500 will be routine. Businesses for black people, and not just, I'm talking about black people, but once we help ourselves, we can help somebody else. If I'm hungry, I can't feed you. I've got to be able to feed myself, and then I can share with you. And that's what we as a people have to do. That's our goal in life. That's our purpose. If there's a God, that's what he would want us to do. He would, go ahead.
My name is James Golden, for those of you guys who don't know me, and I had the privilege of having Professor Scott write the introduction to my first book. And basically he talked about the Watts Renaissance and the revolt from a personal perspective, and I learned so much from it that I didn't know before. And you know, looking at it as a social and political movement, and seeing the landscape now where we have hip-hop, grassroots activism, and having that be the main primary social movement going on right now. My question is, what did you think was the difference between Watts specifically compared to Chicago, New York, revolts in the 60s? Like, what was different about Watts? What stands out about it?
I think Watts was the first. I think because the issues were the same. An absence of power. An absence of power. Every place that you named revolted because there was an absence of power or misuse of power toward minority. They did not have the freedom to determine their own destination or define themselves and their quality of life issues. Police brutality, if you look at all of them, police brutality tops the list. On every one you named, there was an issue or a confrontation with the police. Number one. Number one. And so I see that Watts, as I said, Watts actually wasn't the first. It was a continuation of the first as things progressed. But it was one of the most significant, because after Watts of 1965, and even you cannot go to a country on this planet and they had not heard about Watts. They had not heard about Watts. They knew everything about, and what they knew about was our struggle for freedom and against oppression. It was not burning down the corner liquor store. It was not about burning down the corner food store that was selling bad food and cheap clothes for high prices. It was about our struggle against oppression and against racism in this country. And a lot of people have wondered, why did it take us so long to do it? In my opinion. There may be other things there, but I don't know what they are. Police brutality, I said, tops the list. Exploitation, killing. Even here in Los Angeles, in Inglewood, they've killed, I think, 3 or 4 brothers. You know, one for no reason at all. Accidental shooting. I mean, where does that go on in any other community? But our community and the Latino community. Latinos, we got the same struggle. Don't let anybody divide us because, you know, the Latinos this and Latinos that. Latinos not doing any more than what we did as a people and what we should do as a people. They got a culture, they got a history, and they have a language. So they're more like that. But their struggle is the same as ours. They don't like people of color have had problems all over the world.
Hi. Welcome.
Well, just before she speaks, class, for those of you who don't know, this is Professor Stanford, Karen Stanford. This is the young lady who's going to be coming to speak to you next week on Tupac.
On Tupac. Hi, how are you? You talked about cultural integrity with regard to the artists of the 60s and 70s, Watts Prophets, etc., Sons of Watts. And I want to know, I'm originally from Los Angeles, but I left, went to college, and I came back about 7, 8 years ago. But I want to know what was happening between, I guess, in the 1970s, but that 10-year period between those artists who were focused on cultural integrity to gangster rap and hip hop. How did those two things relate, and what did you think while it was happening?
First of all, I don't think any of us was aware of what was taking place because we made some mistakes in the movement.
Okay.
One of the major mistakes we made was counter-revolutionary activities and the COINTEL program that was headed by the FBI and the government, the United States government, against the whole entire black movement, including Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, as well as the Panther Party, US Organization, Nation of Islam. That was a counterintelligence or a counter-revolutionary force that came into being and said, we're going to take America back. We're going to begin to disrupt and discredit everything black that's moving in a united kind of fashion.
Did you add in there the Watts Writers Workshop? And
the Watts Writers Workshop, which was happened to somehow mysteriously burned down in Watts in 1965. But I was telling Professor Scott, I just saw a 4-hour documentary on the Panther Party. It's available on Netflix. You can rent it off the Netflix or video store. The counterintelligence and the focus of and the amount of resources that they put on that one organization. They had Huey, he stayed in a place in San Francisco, built out the community for safety reasons. They had his room bug, they had his telephone bug, they even had the elevator bug that he rode up and down on so they could hear every conversation.